Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to have legendary Jimmy Palmiotti with us. We are going to talk about his Indiegogo, and of course, we're going to have to touch on Power Girl and Harley Quinn. But first off, tell us a little bit about. I know this is a one shot, but
Right.
for people that aren't familiar with Painkiller Jane, totally wouldn't be me. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
That's good.
Tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about the character and kind of pitch us this book, why we should be interested. And it is pinned in the comment section, guys. So if you want to check out the Kickstarter, it is right there.
All right. Yeah. So the character was Painkiller Jane is a character Joe Quesada and I created back in 1994 when we were self-publishing with a company we had back then called Event Comics, and we basically did a couple of books. We did a book called Ash, which was like a fireman superhero, Painkiller Jane, and we did another thing called 22 Brides, and so on. We put out our own titles, and through the years, we did that for a couple of years, and then during the mid '90s, we sold the Painkiller Jane property. We sold it as a 2-hour film. It was a 2-hour Sci-Fi Channel film. And then not too long after that, they okayed it for a 22 1-hour episode TV series, which aired on Sci-Fi. I'd say like in the 2005, 2006 area. I worked on the show, wrote an episode of it, and then since then, we've had Painkiller Jane in development a couple of times. Had it with Jessica Chastain, and then that fell apart. We had it with a couple of different groups. But in the meantime, I've been putting out Painkiller Jane books, Adventures of Painkiller Jane, over the years. And at first, I had them coming out at Dynamite Comics for a while because we didn't do Event Comics anymore. Joe Quesada and I actually went and did Marvel Knights after Event. So we kind of like went off in another direction. And yeah, we put it out through Dynamite at one point, comics, and then we did it through Icon, which was through Marvel Comics. And then ever since then, I've been doing them as one-shot Kickstarters. So that's what the new one up is called Heartbreaker. It's a done-in-one story with Painkiller Jane. But the origin of Painkiller Jane is she was a character she's like a rookie cop. Her and a girlfriend were two rookie cops that get pulled into like going in an undercover mission. And what happens is the mission falls apart. And Jane gets found out, and it's like through these drug lord guys. And to make an example out of Jane, they shoot her up. They shoot her up with a lot of drugs, like a drug cocktail that puts her in a coma. And her whole life, everybody in her life goes on. This is for years. She's in a coma, and also the police, because they're fearing for the family, don't tell people she's in a coma, but they tell her that she died. That's to protect the family. So to the world, she's a dead person. And basically, she comes out of the coma. She has like a healing power. I won't say it's like Wolverine, but it's like a slow healing power. She can get hurt really bad and she heals, but not fast like Wolverine or anything. And actually, the power is a little less important to the character than her story. But she comes back, and her best friend, who she was undercover with, has become a detective, and Jane's life's a complete mess. And she's kind of like got a really dark cloud over her. She's been suicidal at some point. She's a bisexual character since '94. We've made her, that was her person. I modeled her after somebody I knew. And she sort of became Maureen, who was her best friend, the detectives, sort of became her lethal weapon. She was like the character that when Maureen felt she couldn't do anything as an actual cop and detective, she would call up Jane to go in there and clean up a mess or do something that she couldn't do. And Jane is this over the top. It's very film noir. It's very dark. And the comics, like the Kickstarter right now, they're not for kids because there's a lot of nudity in it. There's sex, there's violence. It's definitely a comic book that I've never felt comfortable making a mainstream character because I think it would be ripped apart too much by editors and the companies. But it's a character that stayed popular. And yes, one of your people asked, Incubus Time Lord asked Kristana Loken. Yes, she did play Painkiller Jane in the series. And Yeah, so whenever I do the Kickstarters every year, I do one Kickstarter with Painkiller Jane, and this one is called Heartbreaker, and it's a 44-page one shot by Italian artist Romina Morinelli. She's an amazing artist.
Beautiful.
The book is beautiful. If you look on a Kickstarter, it'll show some pages and stuff. If you guys want to check it out, the Kickstarter is down to its last 3 days, so I think it ends on Wednesday. The good news is we just hit another stretch goal. So anybody backing it right now is not only getting the book, but they're also getting another digital book. They're getting a digital sketchbook, and they're getting a sheet of stickers. So, I mean, we've hit these 3 goals. So anybody even backs the regular book, the regular physical book, at this point is getting a whole bunch of other things. Plus anybody that backs the visual book, the actual book itself, also gets the same book as a digital file as well. So we make sure everybody has a digital. So yeah, we've been doing great with it. And there's the sticker sheet on your screen. If you look, that's a sheet. It's like the size of a comic book. That's how big it is. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stickers on it. They're mostly done. Josh Burns did the middle piece, and all the other pieces are done by Amanda Connor. And yeah, so this Kickstarter is doing very well. Again, we have a very built-in audience with this character. People love Jane. Again, when we did the character way back when, it was a little groundbreaking because of her sexuality and stuff.
Right.
Again, that's 95. That's a couple of years ago, 1995.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. That was before you were born, right?
No. I was born in 86. I'm old.
Well, yeah. So, all right. So not that you're not old, believe me. But anyway, yeah. So that's the Kickstarter. Like I said, we have 2 or 3 days left, and then that's it. And again, the thing with the Kickstarters is if you get in on these Kickstarters, these are like true collectibles. If you're a collector, they're true collectibles because some of these covers we offer is only 100 copies or 200 copies. So it's not like when Marvel and DC tells you, hey, this is an alternate cover, and then you find out it's 100,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 copies, and you're like, well, how alternate? How much of a chase cover is it really if it's 1 out of 2,000? These are actual collectibles. They our last thing we did was Pop Kill, and I had an Adam Hughes cover that we sold for $30.
Oh, beautiful.
You got an edition, and now they go for $1,000 each. So that gives you some.
Wow.
I mean, literally on eBay now, there's one for 750 that people are bidding on, and there's another one for buy it now for 1,200, I think. And I'm just like, well, they could have bought them all for $30 at some point. But that's a cover right now on your screen. That's by Bill Sienkiewicz. It's a beautiful, very intricate cover if you look at it, because the story takes place in Italy in this issue, and you see the Italian background behind Jane. She's rolling down the window in a car. And you can see the bad guys like in the reflection of the glass up there. That's how great Bill Sienkiewicz is. He's just an amazing artist. It's a movie.
So you have 3 covers on this one in total.
I had
correct?
3 or 4 actually. Yeah, we have the next one is J.G. Jones and Brian Haberlin. That's the crew that did Black Widow for Marvel Knights. So they were the ones that introduced Yelena into the Marvel universe.
Okay.
And they did this cover for me, and it's beautiful. Has the 3 characters that are in the book. That's Jane in the middle with the guns. And then it's 2 other characters in the book. And he did a beautiful cover. That looks like an album cover or something.
Yeah, absolutely stunning.
Badass. And then we have Jennifer Van Damsel, who's a cosplayer, did this cover with Dave Johnson. She shot 2 pictures of herself. She made herself up like Jane. And then Dave Johnson.
That's a real person.
Yeah, it's a real person. And then she modeled Jane, and then Dave put the banner and the skull in the back and brought it all together. And what a cool piece it is. But yeah, Jennifer's got her own.
Wow,
website.
that is stunning.
She not only models, she actually shoots all the photos herself and does all her own makeup. She's a pretty amazing gal, And that's a pretty cool.
I love, they do a lot of cosplay covers for like Dynamite and stuff, but none of them quite look like this. Wow, that's beautiful.
No, we didn't want to do the typical "I'm standing there" kind of thing. Although we do have one by her that's like that in a way. But anyway, this is a mystery adult cover. So Amanda does a special limited cover we don't show it. So the only time you see it is when you actually back the Kickstarter and you get it in the mail. And they're usually very adult. So there's nudity and stuff like that. We don't, we make it like a mystery cover. People love the mystery covers. It's, we have to write, not actual art, because people think that's the cover, you know? So she does that. And then there's the straight shot of Jennifer. She actually made that bullet hole. She put that in herself with makeup and stuff in her above her chest there. But that's quite the bountiful cover. Jen's just, you know, she's cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And and then, you know, so
and then we got
variety. So this one is Amanda Conna did these covers where you can order it, you get the black and white cover, and she draws in the barrel of the gun. So she does an original drawing, like a remark in the barrel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we do something like that. You know, look, with Kickstarter, we try to think of different things to do. And then this is Romina's artwork. This is what the inside of the book looks like. And Romina pencils, inks, and colors her own art. She's pretty terrific.
That's beautiful. That looks amazing. Like,
yeah.
Well, obviously we've got some censoring going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Kickstarter, so we you know, obviously those bars will not be in the book. But that's just to give an idea of the artwork, you know, what she can do. And again, you know, the Kickstarter is about selling something. You know, you have to go out and you have to sell it, but you have to represent what you're selling. And it's for creators like me. This is my 19th Kickstarter. So I've done 18 before this.
Oh, wow. So you've had plenty of experience.
I have. I've never not delivered it on time. And you will not find one bad word about my Kickstarters anywhere on the internet, because we deliver to everybody. You know, the people say, well, I ordered a Kickstarter, I never got this, I never got that. It's the complete opposite with me. Everybody gets their stuff. I communicate with everybody through email, and I make sure everybody's completely satisfied. I even take care of broken packages and busted packages and missing things and stuff like that. Because all you have when you do the Kickstarters is your reputation. So if you do not treat it with much care, you get a bad reputation. I do not have that. I earned all my good ratings from people. You know, I respect everybody that backs it. Like that. You know,
respect them, they'll respect you back, and it looks like with 19.
Yeah,
can you hear me? Okay,
I've done 19. I did the first one. Yeah, it blanked out for a second. I did my first.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
In 2014. It's okay.
Oh, wow. Before it was becoming trending.
Wesley Jones. Wesley Jones, he says he backed off. Well, Wesley, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I hope you got all the books and everything. I'm sure he did, because Wesley would have wrote me by now, complaining.
Exactly. I love it. It looks absolutely stunning, and it's. You mentioned you had projects with like Jessica Chastain and stuff. I honestly think that would be a pretty good fit.
Yeah, she didn't think so. I mean, she originally went after the property, and then when the screenplay came in, which everybody loved, I don't know why, but she chose another movie. I thought maybe initially because the character was a rookie cop, she's like a little older,
right?
Than the role would have needed, and but we were willing to change that a little bit, but. I just think at the end of the day, you know, these actors, what they do is they have like 15 different properties they're developing for themselves, for their own companies.
Right.
And then they just pick and choose which ones, which is fine. The good news is we get it back, and we're going to go out casting soon and look for somebody else. And I have a couple of people in mind, and that I think will even be a more interesting fit in a way. You know, I do like Jessica Chastain, and I thought she would have been great. But that's her choice, you know.
Right.
Actors, she's got it. She can pick and choose whatever she wants. So I get it.
So you are looking right now, currently. This is in development.
Yeah, we are out there, looking for the right person. The one thing we're never going to do again is settle on something, you know. And I'd rather not do the project and then and wait for the right person. I'd
Yeah.
rather a lot of people jump at anything to get it done, and I get it, but at the end of the day, for me, it's like I learned the hard way. Like you got to just when you know it's the right person, you got to go for it. And like when we were doing Harley, when they announced when Amanda and I were working on Harley Quinn, they announced Margot Robbie, and we were like, she's going to be perfect. Like we just,
Absolutely perfect.
And then we see her reading our books, and then when we met her, she talked about the books and everything, and I was like, okay, she's going to be the best Harley. She's going to be amazing. I wish the studios had more faith in her. I said, because in a way, I wish they just made a Harley Quinn movie and stopped making teen movies with her.
Yeah, she Harley can hold her own. I think at this point she's a big enough of an IP where she could even and I've talked about this before, even bring in something where you bring in Poison Ivy. I know you don't need Poison Ivy, but the fans would absolutely love it. She could hold, and Margot Robbie, as far as like live action, nobody can top that. She's amazing.
She's great. I mean, the minute she needs a screenplay that's just about focused on Harley, she can call Amanda and I up in a heartbeat, and we know exactly what to do. We don't need. Again, I love the Birds of Prey. I love the Suicide Squad and everything, but they all ensembles, and it's just nice to see her on the screen by herself, and she has so much story to tell.
Oh yeah.
People keep thinking it's only about Joker, and I said no. I said we wrote 16 issues.
Yeah.
Only 4 or 5 of them actually involve the Joker, and we managed to do very well with it. So, so I think a lot of people just have it in their brain, and again, they gave the Joker his own movie, and it was one of the biggest hits for Warner Brothers that they've ever had, so I think that the same thing could be done for Harley so easily.
What was it like seeing a live action Harley after writing her for so long? Like, was it kind of amazing?
It was. I mean, when for Birds of Prey, they flew us out to the set. So
that's cool.
We came on Warner Brothers Studios, and Amanda and I went into one of the big, gigantic buildings where they had the Birds of Prey fight scene at the end. We're in that funhouse thing. We walked in, and they were shooting the scene with Harley with the hammer, knocking out some bad guys. And we walked in, and they were filming it, so we had to be quiet, and we're off to the side. And then when they yelled cut, and then we see Margot Robbie, with the hammer. We thought it was a stunt person, by the way, because she was doing all this crazy stuff, and we realized no, that was actually Margot doing that. And she roller skated up to Amanda and I and gave us a hug and explained what the scene was about. And that it was very surreal for us. It's super exciting, and that she even gave us the time of day. But she met us before. And one of the sweetest things, the first time we met her, it was right after the first Suicide Squad. We were at the premiere in New York, and she came up to us and asked us if she did okay. Which was very cool. She's just a really sweet and smart person, and you become an instant fan when you meet her. She is just as wonderful as she comes off in interviews and stuff like that. That's who she really is. And so for us, it was it is surreal. I mean, it's every they invited us to the premiere in London, and we got to go out and party with them afterwards, and I got to meet Rosie Perez, who is another Brooklynite.
Oh yeah.
So she was awesome. I mean, we talked a while there. It's just everybody involved, the director, the writers, everyone was sweet and nice. It was very nice that they knew who we were, because we expect nothing. I mean, we're just people that work on the comics, so it's very surprising when they know, even if they get prepped that morning, they go, hey, look, Jimmy and Amanda are coming. Here's who they are. It doesn't matter, right? It's still a lot of fun on our end. So
and have someone say,
yeah,
did I do okay? Knowing that you did the source material is kind of humbling in a way. It's sweet. It's down to earth.
Well, she was one of the few actors that when she was prepping for the role, they would have publicity pictures. They'd have her holding our books, at the airport. Like she was reading our trade books and stuff.
Hmm.
And she's not an actor that goes out and says, I never read it, but I'm going to do this role. You know, she's not one of those. She's like, she researched. I just saw her, nothing against her, but I just saw an interview with Jennifer Tilly saying how she never saw the first two movies to Child's Play, and you know, like she was almost boasting about it.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was like, well, if you're gonna take on that role and do it, I think you should spend maybe 4 hours and watch those two movies. A lot of people put work into creating that character. So when I see that, I'm always a little, you know, I'm always like, hmm. And Margot is a complete opposite. She knew the character. She read the books. She read the trades. She had questions. She put the beaver, you know, Bernie the Beaver in the movie. And, you
Yep.
know, there's little details in the movie that came right out of the comic. A lot of the art that Amanda and Chad did, there were scenes in the movie that were right out of the comic. So it was pretty cool.
I love seeing that. Those little, like, you know, when you followed that run, you were able to recognize those little things, those little Easter eggs they put in. And
Yeah.
I think that goes a lot to her credit. But as far as like Power Girl, right? That's another character that you and Amanda absolutely killed it on.
We
Do you
love
think we'll
Power
ever get a chance to see something like that? I mean, like, you know, I know that Power Girl is she's a babe. We'll just go with she's a babe. Do you think that would work in our current climate?
You know, when we took it on, when we took the series on, people were like, "Oh, it's that character with the chest out and all that." And you know, me, Amanda, and Justin, we sat there and said, "Okay, who is she?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who is Kara? Like, who? What is she?" And we had all these questions with DC. Where does she work? Where does she live? And they were like, "Well, you know, it's just Power Girl." And I'm just like, "Okay, but what's her day like?" And you know, and like all this stuff. And they didn't have a lot of those answers. And we all sat together and said, you know, I want to care for this character.
Right.
Like she's built the way she is, but she shouldn't be like that. She didn't have she, you know, that's just who she is, right? So we need to get past the body. She just has that body. People we know in our life have that kind of body. That's great, you know.
Exactly.
So let's move the body aside, that business aside. Who is she? So what does she want out of life, and what does she fear? Right? What's her fears? And that's how we wrote our 12 issues of Power Girl. Is this is a real person with a real job, with a pet, with a life, with supporting characters. And we just knew, like, if in order for an audience to attach themselves to this character, we have to make her human. We have to make her seem like a real person. And we had 12 issues to do it, right? And you know, having Amanda on the art really helps, right? Because she humanizes everybody. But Justin and I went in and we wrote this series and just said, look, you know, by the end of it, you're going to really care about her. And I think so much so that every time she's done that, Amanda and I don't do Power Girl, people have like a lot of opinions about it. They're like, well, it's not like Jimmy and Amanda did, where she had you know, even when the guys took over the book after us, they kind of killed off our supporting characters and they did all this stuff. And I was like, and I was reading it and I'm like going, you know, that's not the way to build the character, you know?
Right.
And again, the same thing happened with Harley. When they gave us Harley, we were like, okay, I get it. You know, Joker kind of smacks her around and she's always, you know, it's an abusive relationship. And,
Right.
you know, how are we going to make this something that we want to work on? And Amanda and I came to the conclusion, like, all right, she has to leave the Joker. She can't be an abused person. And I'm not going to write a book about an abused character. And I said, the second thing, I said, let's get her out of Gotham, because I think it's a weakness in the Batman universe that everything happens in Gotham. So any new character you do, it's automatically a Batman villain or a Batman character.
Right.
And for us, I said, you know, Harley has to step out on her own. So let's get her out of Gotham. Let's put her in Coney Island, Brooklyn, which makes sense. And let's just work on her supporting character. And that's what we did. And I think, you know, it struck a chord, right? All the ideas we had. And Amanda, of course, came up with the, you know, hey, look, she should change her clothing all the time. And, you know, we had a lot of ideas and we changed the character, but DC really thought it was not going to do well. So they just said, do whatever you want. And we did. So it worked out. And same thing with Power Girl. We've been pitching DC a Power Girl book for the past 5 to 6 years, and they're just not interested. you know?
Uh, that's a shame because
Yeah,
I liked Power Girl before. Don't get me wrong, but I never really truly cared for Power Girl until you and Amanda were on that book because
right.
it felt like she was a full-fledged character for once.
Right, right. No, she was always a kind of like, super powerful. Everyone, the whole thing about her was guys always mention her chest and her body
Right.
and I just was like, God, the character just needs a little tender love and care, you know? Because we just love Carol. We love that character. I mean, we put Power Girl in Harley more than like we've always put her in there. We keep putting her in. The last book we did, we put Power Girl in it as well. We did the Harley and the Birds of Prey, the hardcover that just came out, and
Yep.
yeah, we put her right in there. We also put other characters, as Dan DiDio used to call our books, the Jimmy and Amanda universe. There's always Power Girl. There's always Atlee. There's always kind of insanity. There's always animals. He says you always put animals, and then we made Harley food obsessive because that's Amanda, and he said that, and that of course struck a chord, right? Because the whole Birds of Prey with the egg sandwich and stuff like that.
Yes.
But that was something that I worked in because Amanda's always obsessed with food, so I was like, oh, that's kind of a cute thing to throw in there, and that defines a person, right?
Yeah.
And
It
by the
absolutely
way,
worked.
I see Braxton. He says he didn't approach me at a con. Always come up and say hi, Braxton. Don't be afraid. I don't bite. So I'm pretty much the most laid back guy at cons. You can come over and chat away. But anyway, yeah. So for us doing characters, and we're very picky about what we work on, but we always try to humanize the character, and the same goes for. So we can go back to Painkiller Jane. You know, um, we decided out of the gate that Jane was going to be a bisexual character, right? It doesn't mean the story is about her bisexuality. It's just like people happen to have a sexuality that they are.
Right.
But we've never made it like this is the story is all about that. That's who she was. And when I do a bio of a character, I put everything in it. So when I write the character over the years, I understand how they think. What do they think? Because obviously it can't be me. The character's not me, and it's not somebody else. The character is the character. It's sort of like when I'm writing a group of characters. I have to almost make them different people I know to get their voices differently.
Right.
So with Jane, it's always been Amanda still says Jane is most like me. The character is most like me. But for Jane, I thought, well, this is a person that's been through hell, and she's just trying to stay around. She's just trying to find things in her life that makes her want to keep going all the time. She's a very dark character. So helping other people has become part of who she is, but she definitely has a way about it, a very Brooklyn way about helping people. It's not always obvious, and it's not always, it's a little questionable at times because she tends to she tends to act and then think. And so it gets her in trouble a lot, but that's also the fun of the character, right? Is to watch what they do. And, I guess this is why we read comics. We don't want everybody acting like we would do. We want them to do stuff,
Exactly.
like that.
But you mentioned about her being bisexual, and a lot of the characters nowadays that kind of is their personality, whereas she has personality. Is that harder to write something where it's like, that's just part of her, and it doesn't matter?
Well,
And
I think the weakness of doing that is making it all about that or bringing attention to it. I had an issue of Jane where she gets seduced by another girl on the beach,
Mhm.
and the goal was that the reader was going to understand the seduction and understand how tempting the seduction was. Now it was two women, right? So
Right.
again, I have friends that are bisexual. I have plenty of friends that are women. My wife is one. So I run everything by everybody, and I just think, okay, does this sound right? Does this sound tone right, or the attraction correct? And of course, if there's something to be said, I listen like crazy, and because I want to get everything right, and again, uh, you're a writer. You have to write everything. I write about alien races. I've never really hung out with aliens. I've never really been off planet Earth, but I do write about them. I wrote 105 issues of a Western, about a cowboy in the 1800s. I was never any of those things. But I definitely researched the hell out of them, and so they sound tone-wise, they sound correct. And I think it's the responsibility of a writer to kind of make sure that's right. And I do have a great, very vocal social media that will tell me if I'm wrong about something, or they'll point out that that may not be correct or whatever. And that's how you learn too. You learn as you go. But I do my research. I definitely do my research. Nothing is just thrown out there.
Is it ever hard to hear, like you mentioned social media? I get that people around you sometimes can kind of pat it, but is that ever like hard to hear the constructive criticism from the fans?
No, I don't. It's funny. The word constructive before criticism makes a big difference.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah, if somebody points out something to me and I'm like, oh, I never even thought of that. Or if they point out something to me and I think it's incorrect, I can have a nice conversation and say, well, actually,
Right.
the person I spoke to said that this has happened, but you know what? Where you are, maybe that is the norm, kind of thing. That's a conversation, right? Somebody tagging me on
Be
a
rude.
review of a book I wrote, and all they do is rip apart what I did, but they want me to listen to them tell me how much they hated it. I find is a very interesting thing. It's not something I would do,
Yes.
me personally, but I'm just like, okay, and I listen, and sure, if there's a good point, sometimes they don't like the book, and then I'm hearing the review, and they say, well, I really can't focus too well when I read anyway, so I forgot what I was. Like, all these weird things come up, and that is also the difference between a professional opinion and just a random opinion.
Yeah.
But I do welcome people. I mean, when I send the Kickstarters out, I always tell people, let me know what you think of it. And I had one guy, I did a book called Rage, and everybody's getting it now. And I did have one guy wrote me, and he says he wished the ending was longer. And I don't think he understood how much of a compliment that was, because that means he wanted more, right?
Yep.
And so, and I said, well, I said, it's honestly, I added 1 or 2 pages, but you know what? Another 2 more wouldn't hurt. Maybe in a future edition, I'll think about that. And, so that's constructive. The destructive, this stuff is like, the ones I hate you got. So everything you suck. I used to get, you destroyed Harley. And then I used to get,
goodness.
and then there was a whole group of people that didn't like the way we handled Poison Ivy. And they went on and on about that. And then when we were off the book, one of the people that ran the group apologized to me and said, you know what, looking back, you actually did handle it pretty well. And we were just pissed off because of this. And I said, look, it's I love that you have passion for it. It's okay. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I'm like, you have passion. If you love the character, somebody has passion for it. I get it. I have passion too. I'm sitting there writing it every month. There's a lot of passion there. It's just, it's not just a money gig for me, and Javier just pointed out we're doing Red Sonja, but Red Sonja is the book Amanda and I are writing right now. And again, it's a character that Amanda and I love, and we're just finding, like, we're just Jimmy and Amandaing it a little bit. We're just going in there, and we're actually telling a crazy action story. So it's something that Amanda and I are having a blast doing with Moratat doing the art. For some reason, I write a lot of female characters. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm
realizing, well, you got Jimmy Hacks and some of the other big ones you've done, but like, but you have a voice for it. And I don't know if Amanda has a lot to do with that. I'm sure she does. Yeah, I'm sure she does. But you do that voice very well. Even I do new comic books on my morning brew every week, and I'm like, I skip a lot of the Dynamite books because those books just aren't made for me, and I'm okay with that. And then I start reading Red Sonja, and I'm like, okay, well, now I like this character again. It's the same thing with Power Girl. You're making her like, not that she wasn't before. There are other people that's wrote her that have been done well, but Dynamite is a lot of TNA, and that's not necessarily what I look for, right? But now we've got this strong female character again that is in her own right, her own character, full-fledged out in 5 issues. Like, I love it.
Yeah, she's a, you know, she's a resilient uh person. You know, like Sonja is like a person that makes a vow and sticks with it. You know, and
Hmm.
that's what this whole story is. She vows to protect the princess. She tells her, "I will protect you." And the joke is that everything in the world is happening to this girl, and Sonja is just like to the point where she's like, okay. And there's by the fifth or the sixth issue, you see like she gives the ultimate sacrifice for her.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the person that Amanda and I see her as. She's the person that sits there and sees something crazy and goes, "Oh my god!" And then she goes, "Well, guess I gotta go fight it," um, kind of thing. So it's kind of, you know, we kind of like tried to get into Sonja's head a little bit, right? But not too much, because Sonja isn't a chatty character.
Right.
She on it. We don't. Amanda and I don't see Sonja as a chatty character. She's one that observes and listens to other people speak and observes and then acts. And she's never been this full conversation character. And so when we have to learn a little bit more about her, we do have a sequence with dreams and death and all this kind of stuff that she's kind of working out stuff in. But she's not somebody that's going to grab the person next to her and go, you know what really bothers me? That's not Sonja. And you know, so you have to kind of stick with that a little bit, because the temptation, a lot of people that write the characters to make her very chatty, and I just never felt that she was a chatty character.
Right. She's very stoic in her own right, kind of way.
Yeah, well, she's very focused too, you know,
Hmm.
and with focus, and focus doesn't have time for things that aren't that. You know, she almost hyper focuses in a way which keeps her a little dangerous, I think. And
Yeah.
she is a little dangerous. There's a part of her that, you know, for us, we always said Sonja's fearless. Fearless about fighting, fearless about her sexuality, fearless about new things and going someplace and doing all this stuff. She's a fearless character. But she's also opinionated, but she's not the chatty opinionated person.
Right.
She makes a decision. And again, it's really important to talk all that out before you write something, because Amanda and I like figured out like who she is in a lot of ways, and how would she react to this. And it's why at times we have Sonja like in the middle of something, she'll start laughing because she sees how ludicrous it is. And you know,
Hmm.
and that's the kind of stuff that makes a character stand out a little bit, that they can laugh at themselves at some point, and you don't expect it coming from her, but the situation almost demands it, and that's her
Right.
release. That's her release of like stress and anxiety. And like I said, all this stuff is what makes a character relatable. And I always say for up and coming writers, I always say, you know, I always ask two questions of each character: what did they want, and what do they fear? And if you can answer the want and the fear, you have a pretty good definition of how to write that character.
And I appreciate that, because there's a lot of times where I feel like those characters, even now that I'm reading, because I read all current, most current, I don't know, can't say all, but
Yeah.
um, sometimes it feels like that those questions aren't answered, or those characters don't have that great in depth. And when you put the time into it, you can do it, like with Red Sonja. But I do have a good question from the chat.
Sure.
Do you have an option on your Kickstarter that has any signed copies of it available?
Yeah, there's a signed copy. It's only a couple of dollars more of the book that I
Okay.
sign. And then there's a Amanda's cover. She signs the editions of anything she does. So
Wonderful.
yes, we have those. Absolutely, we do those.
Awesome.
There's a lot of people that don't want the signature. It's really funny because people want their book clean.
Yeah.
And I think that's the collective people, you know, the people
Yes.
that want to go maybe to CGC, or they just want a mint comic. And we try to make sure the books we send out are like all 9.6, 9.8. Like we literally open the box and put it in the bag with a backing board and a COA in it, or whatever we do. Because I understand that there's a percentage of this business that is a collector. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
we make sure they're happy too.
Awesome. I love it. I love getting those signed copies. Personally, I'm like, I gotta have
Yeah,
this one. I
me
gotta
me
have
too.
that one.
I like them personalized, but a lot of people don't. I like them personalized to me.
Oh yeah,
You know,
definitely.
I go to the cons. I have when I saw Stan Lee, I had a copy of an old FF, and I said, "Can you sign this, Stan?" And I said, "Can you sign it to me?" And he goes, "Are you sure you want to do that? Because one day it's gonna only be able to be sold to a guy named Jimmy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care." I'm like, "Just Jimmy, please." I said, "I want to show that we were in the same place, buddy."
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh. So
so
last
crazy.
question. I know you gotta
Sure,
get going, but
sure.
what is your favorite character to read as a consumer?
You might laugh at this one.
Oh no.
I love the Love and Rockets books. I've been buying the comics since it came out from the Hernandez brothers, and there's no one character in it. It's like Kopi and all that. They have a million characters in it, but I love their crazy books. They don't make sense half the time. They ramble and go in different directions. But I do love the work the brothers do, and I always find the books interesting. As far as a mainstream character, I'm really picky because it's tough for me because I like Harley. Before we worked on it, I wasn't really a big Harley reader. I only liked the Bruce Timm and the Paul Dini stuff was the only stuff I was familiar with, and I had to catch up when we got the book. And the same with Power Girl. I read a lot of Power Girl, and I was like, okay, but nobody's like I said, I can't find out where she lives, or like all these things were not
Right.
there. And we decided that we have to just make that up. And so I used to love Black Widow when she was in other books. My favorite two characters at Marvel are Misty Knight and Colleen Wing. You
Oh
know,
wow.
those are my favorite two. I wrote a mini series with Justin with them
Uh-huh.
years ago, and I would work on them tomorrow if I could. As far as DC, I gotta say, I'm tired of all the Batman books. There's so many Batman books. I don't even.
Oh, so
I went
many.
to the comic store. There's like 20 of them, and I'm like, okay, enough with the Batman. I get it. He's gonna beat up the Joker this month. I tend to go towards the characters that are a little out of the way, like a Jonah Hex or a Hawkman. I love Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Um, and but my reading comes down to again who's working on something.
Right.
Um, so I'm definitely a creator follower and not a company follower. I could give a crap about what company's putting out a book. I follow the creators that have shown me over the years that they really love their work, and so I follow creators, and that's why I think right now is a really interesting time because we don't need the companies so much. We have a lot of creators doing their own things, and I've always been a creative guy, so I follow artists and I follow writers, but never companies. I could care less for when a company does a crossover. That's sort of like my time now that I could take a break from that company because
Yep.
I do not invest myself into 40 books to tell a story that pretty much just puts everything right back where it was. Um, so I'm not that kind of guy. I definitely like a challenge in a book. I don't like I said, I have problems reading Joker and Batman stories because it's always the same thing over and over and over.
Yep.
And the Batman universe to me is overdone. Um, like I said, I think we've been there enough. I think DC has so many bizarro great characters that are not Batman and Joker that they need to get out there and experiment with more.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
like I said, Amanda and I offered them recently. We had an idea for a Power Girl book, and they just weren't interested. And I couldn't. For me, my brain doesn't comprehend that. Right, Amanda drawing another Power Girl book, I think it would sell pretty good.
Yeah, I do
Um,
too.
but again, their choices are aimed at whatever they're aimed at. So Amanda and I are putting our energy into doing our own book. So Painkiller Jane, like the Kickstarter, is one of mine. And then Amanda and I have another book we're working on where Amanda created this female character that's insane. And I think that'll, we'll find our audience out there. That's what we do. We do these shows to people familiarize themselves with us. And then eventually when we launch something, hopefully they support it.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys check out that link. It is pinned and it is in the description. It is uh, beautiful. Like I can't wait to receive my copy. I'm excited. It looks great, and it's
It's
only got 3 days left. Correct?
yeah, it's got 3 days left. I'm actually talking to the printer today because I'm estimating what the sales will be in the next 3 days, right? And then I'm putting the numbers in because right now we're dealing with a paper shortage, and so I have to buy
Oh
the
yeah.
paper in advance. Um, so I'm putting the numbers in now so we can get the books. But what happens is once the Kickstarter checks are cleared, the money's cleared and everything, we will send everybody a digital copy in the mail before the actual books come. So everyone gets a digital. Doesn't matter what you backed, you get it. It's a $6 for a digital copy, but if you backed any of the physical levels, you get the digital books too. So we make sure everybody's covered everywhere. So if people want to read it early before they get their comic in the mail, they can read it on their computer or on their phone or on their iPad. I just try to, like with the Kickstarter, I just try to think like, okay, what is it I would want? You know, like what do I want? If I'm back in a Kickstarter, and I always want the digital book, and I also want the paper book. I want them both because I want to be able to go on a plane and read
Yep.
digitally, read my iPad. But I also like I'm a physical guy. I like to what's it called, tactile. I'm a
Uh-huh.
tactile person. I love the feel of the paper and the production of the book and the paper's quality and stuff like that. So so that stuff's important to me. It might be a little old fashioned. I get reminded that I'm a little old fashioned about having physical books, but I also think I'm a kid who grew up with three brothers, so it's like we had to got to grab our stuff from each other. Um, you know, it wasn't always that easy. To kind of keep our stuff separate. I don't know. How about yourself? Are you a digital person or a print person?
Unfortunately, because the comic book shop I had in the area closed down 3 years ago, unless I order, and I a lot of times if I order anything, it's signatured, so I'll read it on my phone knowing I still have it. But
Right.
yeah,
That's
I hated it at first. I just had to get used to it. I didn't have much of a choice, but I love it. I love it. I can't. It's things like the Kickstarter where I get excited to have it again. Like it's almost
yeah.
nostalgia, baby, for me.
No, I get it. I mean, I love, it's funny. I love having all the books. I wish you can see the studio. I can't turn my computer, but it's like I had so much stuff everywhere. And I always have to do this. Okay, well, this goes to Salvation Army, and we have like near our house, we have this thing. It's like for teenagers with broken homes. They all live in this
Mhm.
place. So that's the greatest place in the world to drop off comics because they love
Oh,
the
that's
comics there.
awesome.
And so there's always a place for them, but I always have to decide: am I really going to read that again? Am I really going to? I know it's an omnibus and it has it, but I haven't even cracked it open. Maybe I should get rid of that. Like you ever have that? You have so many books and you're like,
Oh
I don't even
yeah.
know if I open that. And I was like that with video movie. I would buy the movies on video on a DVD and stuff. And then I realized I didn't even open that one yet. And I'm just like, okay, I need to slow things down here. What do I really need? And of course, the digital books, I can keep 1,000 digital books on my iPad,
Right?
So it's pretty cool. That's why we make the digital cheap. Because people on Kickstarter also, they go, well, I can't afford it. And I'm like, well, it's $6. And at this point, because of all the stretch goals, you're getting the Painkiller Jane book, you're getting another Painkiller Jane book, you're getting a sketchbook, right? So you're getting all this stuff for just $6. So,
You can't argue with that. You can't even
yeah,
get
you
that
can't.
from the mainstream at all. It's just $1 more than most books at the mainstream right now.
And digital really, I mean, honestly, because I'm Kickstarter, I'm one person, so I'm not a giant corporation, but let's be
Right.
honest, the digital comics when they come out should be like $1, 25. They shouldn't.
I know.
They should be nowhere near the price of a physical copy.
I
You
know,
know?
and I hate it because if I do a review on it, right,
Yeah.
and I buy my weekly, so it's
Right.
three, $4 or $5 for a digital copy, and I have
Yeah.
a copy of it on Comixology and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not the same. It really
No.
isn't.
No. I honestly, I think if they made it $1.25, I think you'd see a lot more people buying digital books.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely. It
just, I
would
just think it's.
skyrocket.
I think what did they charge? Like $2.99, right? Something like
Yep,
that. Yeah.
$3.99 sometimes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous though.
It
There's no
is.
paper. There's no pay. I think if you manage to bring another million people into reading digital comics, you can lower that price big time.
Yeah.
But
And now
I'm
they're
not a
doing the
millionaire.
webtoons thing too on top of it. And it's like, you're giving that away for free, but you're charging me $4 for your regular book. You're not going to have that crossover audience if you're doing this.
No, it's funny. I'm looking because I have my webtoons. I like my webtoons.
I do. I like it now too.
and I follow a lot of them, and I'm always looking at new stuff, and I think that's I just think it's great. I think that's another way to get comics. Amanda and I are talking about doing something like that.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Just kind of like a very soap opera kind of crazy thing.
I love it.
But yeah. And he says, Javier is asking if I have a YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I don't have like one where I chat or anything, but I have like some videos on it. I have the pro video, which Amanda worked on. That's on my YouTube, but I don't have I'm usually the guest, like somebody like Tristan has me, Javier. So I'm happy to be a guest. I don't think I'm a guy that would have a YouTube. So,
it's a lot sometimes. It definitely is. Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's kind of like, dream come true for me. So it means a lot. And make sure everybody, you guys check that out. It is fantastic. It is worth it. And you're really, we're supporting a creator-owned property. And I always am for that.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to your audience. I love the audience today. I love that they're awake this early and so chatty.
I know. It's awesome. I love it.
Must be a lot of coffee involved,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I need right now, too. So thank you so much. Thank you guys, everyone. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.